phrase you've been given. Understand? Number one, step forward.
What is going on, movie lovers and butt smokers, and welcome back to another episode of 5 on It. We are your hosts. I am Francisco.
And I'm Sir Frazier.
And on today's episode, we are reviewing a 1995 classic. I would say a movie, if you saw even the silhouette of the cover, you would know the title of the movie. A movie that is praised as having one of the best plot twists in cinema history. A movie that you will be asking, who the hell is Kaiser Soze? Today, we are talking The Usual Suspects. But before we dig into the weeds on all that, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, drop some comments below, maybe some comments on if you enjoyed this movie or maybe you didn't enjoy it. Maybe you saw the twist coming from a mile away. But before we get any further, Sir Frazier, tell the people what we're smoking on.
Man, I am back at it with my pen. This is Mimosa. It's a nice sativa from Higher Culture. Mm-hmm. Definitely recommend checking them out, man. What about you? What are you smoking on today?
I am smoking on, I don't know the name of the brand. Actually, it is called Harmony. It's by Harmony Farms, and it was Granddaddy Perp.
Granddaddy Perp, huh?
Yeah, classic, man.
Very nice.
I usually do the Crystal Clear, but they've been low lately. I haven't been seeing it at the dispensary, so I don't know what's been going on. I've had to switch it up a bit.
Listen, I'm just having mimosa on a Saturday.
That is classic.
All right, so man, if you have not seen this movie, please stop the podcast and watch this movie. It's we did a review on the best of the '90s, and I believe this was an honorable mention for you. Was it? We definitely talked about it in that conversation.
I think we just mentioned it.
We did. Okay.
Yeah. It was on my list, though.
It was definitely a borderline honorable mention for me, but this is definitely one of the highlights of a really rich decade, genre-wise. I mean, this is a really highly regarded crime thriller that kind of has like noirish aspects to it, but diving in, so the summary for this movie is the sole survivor of a peer shootout tells the story of how a notorious criminal influenced the events that began with 5 criminals meeting in a seemingly random police lineup. This movie is directed by Bryan Singer. Many of you will know from his work with the Marvel Universe and the X-Men, movies such as Days of Future Past. He also has done movies like, one of my favorites.
That is easily in my top 5 of my favorite comic book movies. No,
for sure. He also did Valkyrie and, of course, this movie here. And this movie stars some heavyweight hitters. We got Kevin Spacey, Benicio del Toro, Gabriel, Byrne, Stephen Baldwin, Kevin Pollak, Giancarlo Esposito. Just to name a few.
I forgot that he was in it.
Yeah.
So when he popped up, I was like, oh, shit. Giancarlo's in this shit.
Yeah, I know, right? Also, we would be remiss not to mention that, Kevin Spacey and Bryan Singer have a lot of notoriety around their names. We wanted to call that out, but also do our best to separate the art from the artists.
Yeah.
In this case specifically, that's not always. I mean, that's a line that consumers have to kind of write out for themselves or etch in the sand for themselves. And it can be tough because many of us can toe that line or cross that line of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
But
there's some people. I guess we can separate it easier than others.
1,000%.
I'm not too familiar with the ins and outs of their ordeals. I don't think they were found guilty of anything. I know there was some accusations thrown around. But we're not gonna. This isn't the podcast to be doing a deep dive on that. You have to do something else with that. But
no, for sure, this is more of a opportunity to spotlight really interesting and sometimes historically great movies. But this movie won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, and Spacey won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. This movie. Where do you want to start? Because there's.
I mean, honestly,
want to just stop it, dive into the plot? I mean, I feel like, a lot of people have heard this, but there's a lot to speak to about just the narration of this, the big reveal, and the real plot. For me, if I'm the real mindfuck, watching after even rewatching this and completing, like now because of what we know about Verbal Kent, everything else that he has told us is debatable about whether or not it even happened. Yeah. Because he's not a reliable narrator. Yeah. We know that now at the end of this movie. So how much of what he was feeding Kuyan and the people he got the plea deal from was just straight up bullshit?
Well, I think that's how you got to take any movie when you're getting a certain narration just from like one perspective. You have to take that into consideration of like, how reliable is this person? Can we take them like actually seriously, or are they just kind of bullshitting us? I mean, and by the end of it, we know that he's kind of like, I mean, he's pretty much bullshitting. I think how the movie starts, how like he ends up like getting shot and stuff like that, and he ends up like taking a piss to like put out the fire and all that. I feel like that's exactly how it all played out. But like when he's saying like, obviously like when he's like, oh, I was hiding and all that. The cop is on to him. He's kind of feeling that he's kind of bullshitting, but he just can't like stick anything to him.
Well, the cop thinks he's bullshitting about Keaton, right? That's who he has. Detective Kuyan has his sights set on, because he is convinced that Keaton is playing verbal for a fool, and that he is the mastermind behind all of this, and that he faked his own death because he's done this before. Yeah. And so I think that one of the things that this movie, I mean, I love the opening shot, right, where we see this ship that it's on fire, and not McManus, Keaton, played by Gabriel Byrne, is basically gets killed by Kaiser Soze. Yeah. We never see the face. All we see is one of our main characters get killed, and then we're with Verbal Kent, where we're getting Kuyan is interrogating him because he doesn't buy the shit, even though he's clearly has some kind of connections where he's able to get immunity.
Yeah, did I miss something? Because I know he's always keeps harping on about I have immunity, especially when Kuyan is like kind of roughing him up a bit. Yep. Like, what did he get immunity from? Like, who gave him actually that immunity?
So remember they definitely call this out in the screenplay, which I highly recommend reading. I'm rereading it as we I'm still finishing it up, but I was rereading it as I was watching the movie. In the movie, right, I thought that, and this is also in the screenplay, they talk about the governor even leaning on them to get this done, and the mayor breathing down the neck of the policeman to get this tied up and get him out of there. Okay. And so there was political pressure. There were eyes and pressure on the police to basically give him immunity. Okay. And so this is again speaking to the power and leverage that seemingly Kaiser Soze has over everyone in his orbit.
And they mention even about him, like there's people that probably work for him and they don't even know it. Yeah. So that kind of goes back to that right there.
Yeah. I love, as Verbal is, giving him the rundown of how everyone met. We see Kuyan, who initially rounds up Keaton, and we can see that we get these glimpses of Keaton, right, as he's trying to go clean. He's trying to pivot away from the life of crime that he's been in, and he's clearly fucking his lawyer as well. And Kuyan kind of pisses on that parade as he's literally in lunch with potential investors for like the restaurant that he was trying to open. And so he is broken by this whole process because he's left with a feeling he'll never be able to escape his reputation and his time in prison after that lineup and the way that they rough him up. But one of the fun facts that I read is that when they have all these guys walking across the lineup, and they're reading the lines.
I think I know what you're talking
That's
about.
That's a highlight for me. But the reason everybody kept laughing was that Benicio del Toro kept farting.
Was it Benicio?
Yeah, I read that he was farting. That's why everybody kept laughing.
Well, they kept it in because you even see Keaton.
Yeah,
that's like to Benicio's left, and you see him kind of looking off, like off the camera, and he's laughing too. I mean, granted, it works in the scene, but you just know like the behind the scenes about it, like kind of what's going on.
It's like, give me the keys, you motherfucker,
bro. That whole like, I like that whole aspect of the whole scene of just him. All the characters getting introduced, Spacey like giving everybody their little introduction, and then just like doing the lineup, and even them talking in prison when they're all just like together. That's just like a huge highlight of this movie. And you get it kind of a lot because there's about 2 heist scenes. Because there's a heist scene when they like go and like you see Kevin Spacey just in the back, just sitting down with a gun, and then they have the one where they're wearing like the Batman mask, where Keaton's wearing like a Batman mask. Like
the one that was in the parking garage.
Yeah,
there was that one, and then there was
that's like at least 2.
That there was that one, and then there's the one where they fuck with the cops, the taxi service. So there was that one as well. Those are the 2 that, and then the final one where they think they're going after the coke.
Yeah, so like just seeing them all. Because except Benicio, he doesn't make it to the final heist. But any scene with like the 5 of them like together and they're just kind of like just bouncing their chemistry off of one another. That's a huge highlight of this movie. Yeah,
I think that speaking of Benicio, he plays Fenster. So I read that he put that spin on his voice when he was doing his lines to kind of, he was almost kind of making it so it was hard to hear because he was a relatively negligible character. He knew he was going to get killed. Yeah. And so he kind of put that spin on it, and it actually really works for the character. It's funny as hell because he's like, give me a kiss, your cock's like, what the fuck? What the fuck? In English, please? Like that's actually Bryan Singer, who's actually asking, like, giving them shit.
Really?
That's his voice.
That shit makes it even more hilarious.
Yeah.
Benicio is like, I love Benicio.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, huge fan. But yeah, like him with that voice was different. Yeah, I haven't seen this movie in a long time. I've only seen it once. I know about the twist, which is why, like, if you have not seen this movie already, you need to watch this and then come back here because the twist is still arguably one of the best twists like you'll see in cinema history. But Benicio's voice is just so iconic. I feel like even though like he has like a kind of a small role, like him just like kind of going in the prison and just talking, it's like, oh, we'll never escape our past, and they'll always just keep fucking with us. Just like him just talking, just like hearing the voice is just so funny to me. Yeah.
When the cops are grilling each of these men individually, I love the cuts from each individual. As especially with Keaton, where he gets, we learn a little bit more about him and his crooked past, and when they fucking just rock his shit, that was an intense scene. One of my favorites from that whole sequence, though, is Hockney when they're asking, you know what happened? He's like, his comments are so fucking funny. He's like, we can place you in Queens. He said, oh really? Yeah, I live in Queens. Yeah. Like. You got a bunch of monkeys working for you. And then when they say, you know what happens, you go back in prison? He said, fuck your father and have a snack. Yeah. He is hilarious.
Well, that's where like even when Spacey's even giving him the introduction and he's like, what's his name? Todd Hockey?
Yeah.
He's like, he's one dude that truly does not give a fuck about anybody.
And he's the one that fucking stole the truck.
Yeah. Well, don't they mention that when...
Yeah.
Was it
Kobayashi?
Was it Kobayashi? Yeah. When Kobayashi's reading off everybody's little rap sheet, it's like, oh, and then he kind of looks around, just like, man, like what? Yeah, it was me.
Oh man, that was a funny scene. But yeah, that was definitely a highlight for me.
And just the cast in general is just a highlight of the movie. I guess, like I mentioned, when you have the 5 of them together, it's always just like a highlight scene.
Well, also, that the immediate scene where they're all in the jail cell and we learn more about all those characters, right? McManus and Fenster have worked together on plenty of jobs.
Yeah.
We learned about Verbal Kent's background, because Keaton recognizes him. And of course, Keaton, McManus says to him, "Oh yeah, say it ain't so. You're leaving life."
Yeah. Keaton talks about how like he met Kent like in county or some shit like that.
Yeah, he recognizes him. Yeah.
So do you think like that was just like a ploy? If they met each other already, do you think he was just kind of scoping him out for this job or some shit?
This is where we have to come back to the fact that all of that could be bullshit because Kaiser is telling us this. He's telling Kuyan this.
True.
So he's taking a lot of fucking liberties.
Yeah, you're right.
Who knows how we know in his story to Kuyan, Verbal needed Keaton in order to back him for everybody else to go along with his plan of robbing the taxis without, killing anybody. Yeah. Right?
If we do it my way,
nobody dies,
You fucking creep.
But I love that scene when he leaves, when they're all released by Keaton's attorney, his girlfriend, and she's trying to reach him, but he's like he says in that scene, they broke me in there, and he is really considering joining up with these guys on this job.
Yeah. And
everybody's like looking at him. Mm-hmm. And that was like a really powerful scene because it's like, they're like waiting for him to break and give in. And he does.
Eventually does, yeah.
I thought that was just a really powerful scene because he depicts Keaton as this man of conflict. Mm-hmm. And it really works effectively because he, at the end, when Kuyan is telling him, Keaton is Kaiser Sose.
Yeah.
He used you because you're weak, He sets up this kind of character why he, in a way that would make Verbal blind to him being this criminal mastermind.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that was like really...
Well, when he mentions it, he's like, I'm just
he tried to save me.
I'm just a stupid and a cripple.
Yeah.
And yeah, even when he mentions like, why didn't you shoot him? And he's like, well, how?
I froze up.
mean, kind of like, obviously he's kind of talking about himself. He's like, how do you shoot the devil in the back? Well, it's like, how do you shoot the devil in the back? Because I am the devil, so to speak. But then he's like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, and then like he holds up his hand and he's like, what if you miss? Kind of what you're mentioning, just like he's building this character of like, I'm just this stupid cripple guy. Like, how the hell can I how can I do anything? And then that's when, Kuyan doesn't even suspect him until the very end. Which...
After the fact, yeah.
He's
already fucked.
If you want to jump to a quick negative, I don't mind him, obviously, like, plotting it together. Mm-hmm. It feels like he figured it out a little quick, though. Just like the way it's shot, just like he's just sitting there, and then as soon as he sees like that one thing, he immediately just
Skokie.
He just drops the mug. I feel like maybe they should have had him kind of maybe scoping it out a little bit. Then he drops the mug or something. I don't know.
You didn't think that? That's the impression that I got was he saw the Skokie, Illinois, then he saw more details that were jumping out at him, and thinking, holy shit. And it was like a domino effect. And then he drops the mug. And then we see Kobayashi. That's the real like exclamation mark. It was like, oh shit. Because we see it earlier in this movie when he brings him a cup of coffee. He's like looking intently at Kuyan as he's drinking.
I thought he dropped the mug just a little too quick.
Oh.
Because I don't mind him piecing everything together.
Yeah.
It felt like, like I said, maybe I have to like rewatch it again. It just like just on initial, my memory serves. It just felt like as soon as he saw like that quartet with Illinois, it just felt like it was so fast from him seeing that, dropping the mug, and then him seeing everything and piecing everything together.
Gotcha.
The Kobayashi. Okay. I feel like the mug drop. It's a small nitpick, or I'm nitpicking here, but I was like, whoa, man, you saw one thing and all of a sudden you're dropping your coffee all over that shit. But I like how he's piecing it together. I felt like he just dropped it a little too quick for my taste.
One of the things that I think was really effective for me about this movie is the sequencing. Like, even though it jumps a lot back and forth between the past and the present, I think that it still feels cohesive.
Yeah.
Because it's anchored in the fact that he's providing, Verbal Kent is our narrator, and he's providing details that were left out of his testimony.
Yeah.
And I thought that they buttoned that up well in the sense like, yeah, you know, who the hell would have believed me? Mm-hmm. And going back to just the way that this movie is kind of, just like the narration part of it, I love that we also kind of jump back and forth where, oh God, why am I blanking on his name right now? Jack Bayer, sorry to find it, Esposito's character.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. He is talking to the Hungarian who managed to survive everything, which adds a clock, like a ticking clock to this situation, because especially once he mentions Kaiser Soze, and they bring in the person to basically, what do they call those? Sketch? Police sketch artists, you know, like to get the detail. That, I love that they do that, and then we get more and more details as the fact that there was no coke there. So now we're trying to figure out, along with, now we're trying to figure out what the hell was going on. Why were they there? Yeah, like what were they really trying to get? Mm-hmm. And when we find out that piece at the end that it was somebody who had ratted and was turning snitch and mentioned Kaiser Soze.
And we still
like that was like a huge bomb drop. You're like, holy shit!
And we still don't even know like when that dude gets murked, kind of like what's happening too. You just know like this dude is here on this boat as well, and all of a sudden like he because he's like, I don't know nothing, I don't know anything, and so you're just like, what the fuck? You're still just confused, like what the fuck is this dude doing here? Yeah. And like just like how you mentioned like when Stephen Baldwin goes to what was his name?
McManus.
I want to say McManus goes to Keaton. He's like, there's no fucking coke, man. Listen to me, there's no fucking coke, bro.
You heard me, you dumb fuck. I've been in every room,
bro. I'm gonna hit you with the pause, no homo, real quick. But I was like, there's parts when you see Stephen Baldwin, I'm just like, Jesus, he's got those piercing blue eyes. You're like, God damn, dude. Yeah. All right, I see why you're a movie star now. But every time I think of Stephen Baldwin, I can't help but think of, he's in. Yeah, I was gonna lead into it. I was like, he's in one of the greatest movies of all time, Usual Suspects. It's on the list if you put. I mean, depending on how wide the list you want to make it. If you want to say the top 100, easily on that list. But he's also in a movie like Biodome, which is a kind of a guilty pleasure. But I guess you see a little.
Is that a cult classic? I feel like it could be, but I'm not sure. Yeah, is that considered a cult classic?
I would think. Possibly. I would say maybe Pauly Shore's movies in general might be cult classics because I think those.
My friend, you ask for too much.
Yeah. I'd like to pile in like Son-in-Law, Jury Duty, Biodome. Those are all in just kind of
Encino Man.
Encino Man.
Classic.
But is he like a main dude in that? Oh yeah, he is. It's him and Sean Astin, right?
I thought that he was one of the main
from
characters.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. The Goonies.
Oh, man.
Stranger Things.
Oh, he got a terrible death in Stranger Things, man. He got...
yeah.
That was sad. Yeah, we got into the weeds a little bit.
We did.
I kind of forgot where we were even let off to.
Well, dude, I was just...
Stephen Baldwin.
Stephen Baldwin, yeah. I think he owns his scenes in this. It's funny also, going back to that scene where he's like, what do you mean there's no coke? I love that... the RZA sampled that on Ghostface Killer's debut album, Iron Man. Yeah, I think it's track 260 where they're like these dudes are about to rob this drug dealer, and they're led to believe that there's coke there, and it turns out to be a big block of cheese from New Zealand, and then they play this clip.
Oh, that's sick, man!
It's so funny,
man.
But I love too like the way that they fabricate the persona of Kaiser Soze, where we get this tension right with this history with the Hungarians and why they're in this picture, why we learn that they're in this picture, right? They are moving in the territory in Turkey, and Kaiser Soze is not the top drug runner, but he does have like he's like a mid-level guy, right? But he's still killing it. Yeah. And they they assault his wife. Grape. I guess we have to say that. And are torturing his kids, and he ends up they cut the throat of one of his kids.
Yeah.
To send the message that we're for real, as though there was any doubt at this point. And Kaiser Soze kills his entire family after killing all but one of the Hungarian men. Mm-hmm. And he says, I'd rather them die by my hand than to live another die after what they've experienced and what they've seen. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This man. And he proceeds to go on a fucking murder rampage, killing not only the Hungarian gangsters and burning their houses and their businesses down, but even killing their friends and people who they had done business with.
Yeah.
Yo, this motherfucker went scorched earth.
Well, I mean, when
he's like, I have nothing.
Yeah, I got nothing left to lose. So, like, I guess Kaiser Soze went John Wick.
The original John Wick.
Kaiser Soze, man.
Kaiser walked so John Wick could run.
Yeah. Bro, it got renewed for a fifth one.
Not surprised.
He's back. That's going to get reviewed at some point on this show.
Oh yeah, we haven't yet to do a John Wick review. We definitely got to add one on there because I'll be down to do a back-to-back reviews on like just great action movies.
Oh yeah.
There's an action movie that I've been thinking about that I think is really great. Desperado.
I've never seen Desperado.
That's insane.
Isn't that like a sequel or
brother? Yeah, the Mariachi. I think it's a sequel to the Mariachi, and then there's Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
That's it. Once Upon a Time.
That's
Mexico.
the sequel.
I was like, isn't that like a part of like a
I never saw Mariachi, so I can't speak.
So it's that one first, then Desperado, then Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Yeah. The Once Upon a Time in Mexico has Johnny Depp. I think Eva Mendes is in that one.
I was like, isn't one of them Latinas like a Penelope Cruz or something like that in there, or Selma Hayek?
Yeah,
Eva Mendes.
Dude, but yeah, I'll totally be down to watch like a couple action movies back to back like that.
Oh hell yeah, bro! I'm with that.
There's some great ones out there. We haven't done an action movie in a while.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the list. One quick thing about Stephen Baldwin, though, I wanted to mention that kind of made me laugh because there's like some subtle humor to this. It's not a comedy by any stretch, but there's some lines in it, like we mentioned with Stephen Baldwin. I feel like he's kind of the comic relief, or Benicio del Toro's character. They're the comic relief a bit. But when he's kind of setting up his gun, he has two lines when he's just like, fuck, what's his name? What's his name again? McManus. God, I keep wanting to say McManus. He's like, are you set up? And he's like, yeah, I will be if I have to keep checking in with you. And then he's sitting there, he's kind of scoping. He's like, old McDonnell had a farm. Dude, and when he says that little old McDonnell tune, bro, it's pretty funny. But his character provides us a nice comedy relief in this.
No, he is. And, I actually read that he and Hockney developed a bit of a beef that carried off camera because I read that Baldwin tried to stay very much in character. He's a bit of an asshole, a bit of a prick, and he tries to stay in character, and that caused. It turned out great on screen because there's definitely some really tense moments where especially when McManus talks about going out to California after they get the stones from the police taxi service, and he's like, "You want to go?" It's like right up in his grill too.
Yeah, they're both. I was like,
he's like, "He let me know," and so I thought that the tension there clearly, unfortunately, spilled off camera as well. But going back to that scene, right, where we get the layout, we learn about who Kaiser Soze is, right? This, excuse me. This boogeyman that criminals tell their kids.
This urban legend.
Don't rat on your pop, or Kaiser Soze will get you.
He'll come and bite off your toe.
Where we get this kind of like dossier on all of everybody, all the usual suspects, right?
Yeah.
And we learn how each of them has wronged Kaiser inadvertently. Yeah. And why they're alive and in this situation. Because he feels they owe him a debt. Yeah. And so he's sending them on this mission where nobody will survive. Not nobody. Nobody ends up surviving.
It's a suicide mission.
It's a suicide mission, and some of them are not expected to live. and he tells them that there's going to be $90 some odd million and coke to do with whatever they wish. And that's where they've been operating under this guise that's a lie, when the real target was to get close, to take out all of the threats and get close to kill the rat.
Yeah.
And I guess so tell me if this was your understanding. My understanding was the Hungarians wanted him to be able to point out Kaiser Soze because they wanted him dead for what he did.
You said
the Hungarians, because they were there, right? That's the guy who was giving the sketch. They wanted to be able to pinpoint Kaiser so they could take him out.
Yeah, well, cause I think that's why like they said like they had that witness there so they could like hand him over, so to speak. So yeah, I think that's what you said. That's why the Hungarians wanted him there.
Yeah. They were trying to get this guy because they wanted revenge for what Kaiser had done, I guess, back in Turkey.
Yeah.
That was my understanding. But yeah, I mean,
how I took it.
Dude, I love the ending. Tell me what you think about that. I mean, how do you feel about the ending?
Well, other than obviously the little nitpick of the coffee drop, I mean, it's a fantastic ending. I mean, I don't think I can offer it any notes, but besides give it its flowers, because up until the point, I mean, granted, like you mentioned earlier, it's a race against time for them to get that police sketch, and I don't think Soze or Kevin Spacey's character or Kent, however you want to look at him at that point, even knows about it yet. I mean, when they come in and they mention Kaiser Soze, he kind of gives an "oh fuck," and you don't. I mean, obviously you don't know like how like anxious he is to leaving or anything like that, but he's just like going with the story. And by the time he leaves, you still see him like doing the limp and all that. Even meanwhile, Kuyan is pinning everything together. He's trying to race out of the precinct. And
the cripple, which way did he go?
I know. At that point, he's like, I don't give a fuck about stereotypes. I'm going to shout it out. But how you see him and like he's putting on his jewelry and then he gets in the car.
You see his lighter, the gold lighter.
Yeah, the gold lighter, the gold watch. And then you see Kobayashi's as his driver. And so you realize you're like, oh my God, it was a setup this whole time. And obviously like once it even gets to how like they go back to when he's talking about how shooting the devil in the back and all that, and poof, you'll be gone. Just like even how they ended with just like cutting to black and all that. Yeah,
adding snippets of their conversation into like that montage or that where he's putting it together, looking at all the articles and the things on the back of the board. I thought that was great. I love the way that we cut back and forth to verbal walking, and then all of a sudden we see his foot straighten.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we see him
doing the hand
loosening
thing,
up his grip, and then we see the gold lighter and the watch, and that's like, oh, this motherfucker.
Yeah, and so like,
and it's like he, you know how he knew he had Kuyan because Kuyan was convinced that Keaton was Kaiser.
Yeah.
So he had him eating out of his hand.
Well, I think
literally
that's
feeding
why,
him
like,
bullshit.
That's why I think like maybe Kaiser wasn't 100%. Like when he's telling the story, he's not 100% if Kuyan's quite buying it until that very moment, and then that's when he's like, oh fuck, I got him now.
Well, he's already got immunity.
That's when he's like, I know he keeps mentioning that. Oh, I got immunity, because I don't think he knows. How much like Kuyan knows up until that moment. Then once Kuyan reveals that he thinks it's Keaton,
and then the fax comes in, and you're just like, oh,
it looks just like him too with that fucking hairline and shit. You're like, oh my God, he got that Count Dracula.
Ew, for real. Oh man.
Oh, one thing though. I mentioned though, like I don't really have any negatives, obviously, besides the nitpick I mentioned earlier. But do you think when the first death happens and it's hockey, is that how you pronounce it? Hockey?
Well, technically the first death we see is Keaton's.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, once like the third, once like the heist is going on.
Oh yeah, after Fenster.
Yeah, Benicio's dead.
Hockney dies first.
Yeah, but then like so he gets shot in the back because he opens it up, he sees
and
the
then
money,
in the head, I think,
and then he gets shot, and he turns around, but then you see kind of just like a light.
Yeah,
I was like, is that just supposed to be a representation of him like figuring it out who it is at that point?
Yeah, I mean,
do you think that had any sort of significance, like with them, the light, or is that just some sort of like?
It might be because there's definitely that look of I should have known from Keaton when in the beginning when he looks up and he says Kaiser Soze. Mm-hmm. He's like because he realizes he knows is his Kent.
Yeah, I mean they do something with the voice too for you to not even like realize it is Kent at that time. But like when Hockey dies and like they kind of show like they flash the light and everything, I was like, they're kind of showing him like, oh, it's you, motherfucker. And then he ends up getting got. But even when Baldwin gets stabbed in the head or something, Jesus. I mean, they piece it together. Well, we both have already watched this movie. I think you've seen it a few more times than I have. But we know who Kaiser Soze is, like watching this. So just kind of seeing like how they piece it together. It's still an enjoyable movie. Mm-hmm. Even knowing who done it, like still like it's still some tense moments, still fun with like the heist scenes, some of the comedy. The twist is still great, even when you still know what's going to happen.
Well, yeah,
it's a fantastic movie. All in all.
I mean, and you're I feel like even rewatching this, even though I've seen this multiple times, you're lock in step with. Kuyan along this during this interrogation where we're getting caught up on what happened. Like I feel like I'm rewatching this. I feel like I was seeing it for the first time again.
Yeah,
because you're in this experience. You're trying to understand who's who and why they're there, and there's this mystery that comes out of nowhere with Kaiser Soze, right? And who is this person? Mm-hmm. And all the while we're trying to understand why everybody, how these men met this end.
Yeah. What
brought them to this point,
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a really great way of telling the story. It's deservedly put up there as one of the best movies of its era and one of the best movies of all time. Both as a screenplay as the movie itself. Great plot twist at the end. I mean, yeah, man. I just I have positive things to say about this movie. It's
really up there great. With like when you talk about twist endings. Like for me personally, I'm not gonna say it has like any sort of ranking, but it's up there with like not Signs, Sixth Sense, mm-hmm. and even Saw 2 that had a great twist to it as well. It's up there. Don't know where it ranks, but the twist ending is still great. But I mean, twists can sometimes you can have a bullshit movie, mm-hmm. and then the twist can kind of make it. You're like, this movie was bullshit until the twist. This movie is enjoyable from start to finish throughout, whether you've seen it or not. Like, I don't really have too many nitpicks to say about it. Just it's quite enjoyable, and if you haven't seen it, see it.
Yeah, I mean, speaking to just to add a little bit more to the plot twist, I remember seeing Strange Darling last year and thinking, oh my God, this is one of the best plot twists I've seen in a long time. And I think it's up there with this movie in terms of the plot twist, because you're just like, holy shit, there's just so much manipulation happening in this movie.
Watching that movie, like as soon as you realize like the chick is the monster, you're like, oh my God, like this bitch is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Even like the old people too, like just the way they piece it together, the editing, it's just fantastic because you just don't know. And that's why you should go into like some movies completely blind.
1000%.
Just trust maybe we will be those people for you. Just trust certain people and just go into a movie without even knowing too much about it. But Strange Darling is just a complete home run. Maybe would have. When did that release? In 2024, right?
Yeah, last year.
That might have been on at least an honorable mention potentially.
I think that was
list.
on my top 5.
That shit was fantastic.
Yeah, that was one of my top 5 from last year. Yeah. Well, man, pivoting to scores. I'll kick us off. I don't mind. I would say for me, this is a 4.5. Really dig this movie. I feel like I said a lot of what I wanted to say. I think the acting, the screen chemistry between these guys is great. It's such a fun and suspenseful thriller, mystery thriller. And yeah, if you haven't seen this, do yourself a favor, check it out. And if you are a fan of this movie, haven't seen it in a while, it is a fun one to revisit.
Yeah, dude. I think I'm gonna have to agree with you on that. I'm gonna go with a 4.5 as well. There's nothing that I can like quite say that's like super bad about this movie. I just don't like. It's not necessarily my go-to. I suppose. Which maybe I should start putting it a little bit higher on maybe my go-to list when I'm looking for maybe like a crime or a thriller, whodunit type of movie. But the cast is great. The score is fantastic. You have a little bit of everything with like suspense, thriller, a little bit of just a dash of comedy in it. You can see just even like some of like the supporting roles with like
Benicio?
I was going to say Denzel. No, Giancarlo Esposito.
Oh, yeah.
Or I don't know if we mentioned him, but Dan Hedaya? But I know him from the Addams Family movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was the cop with the messy office.
I remember him from The Hurricane. He was that dirty cop. He often has like some grimy roles.
I know he does kind of have that look to him where he can maybe be a little dirty cop, dirty detective, something like that. But
it's the chin.
yeah. But the not the interrogation, but the the interrogation scenes are fun. The heist scenes are fun. It definitely leaves you on the edge until like the very end of the movie. So 4.5 is where I go with it. Usual Suspects, man.
Yeah, man. Well, that's our movie for this week. Join us next time, and we'll catch y'all soon.
Peace.